Happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm Tiffany Service Gustafson, a digital strategist with BWG Connect, and we are a network and knowledge sharing group. We stay on top of the latest trends, challenges, whatever is shaping the digital landscape. We want to know and talk about it. We'll do at least 500 of these virtual events this year due to the increase in everything digital. And we'll also be doing at least 75 in-person dinners throughout the US. So if you happen to live in a tier 1 city, feel free to shoot us an email or check out our website, bwgconnect.com. We would love to send you an invite. These dinners are typically 15 to 20 people having a discussion around a certain digital topic, and we always have a great time. We spend the majority of our time talking to brands. That's how we stay on top of the latest trends. I'd love to have a conversation with you, so feel free to drop me a line at Tiffany, Tiffany at bwgconnect.com, and we can get some time on the calendar. It's from these conversations we generate the topic ideas we know people want to learn about, and it's also where we gain our resident experts, such as Cellcord, who is with us today. So anybody that we ask to teach the collective community has come highly recommended from multiple brands within the network. So if you ever need any recommendations within the digital space, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have a short list of the best, and we would love to provide that information to you. A few housekeeping items before we get started. First and foremost, we want this to be fun, educational, conversational. So drop as many questions, comments you have into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be sure to get to them as we move along through all the content. And we here start about 5 minutes after the hour. Rest assured, we're going to wrap up at least 5 to 10 minutes before the end of the hour to give you ample time to get to where you ever need to go next. So with that, let's rock and roll and start to talk about Walmart Marketplace 101, understanding 1P and 3P best practices. The team at Cellcord are awesome, have been great partners of the BWG community. So I'm going to kick it over to our panelists. If you can give an introduction on yourself, that would be lovely. And then we will dive right in. Thank you all for joining. Michael, I will start with you.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining and taking your time out of your day. I'm Michael. I'm the founder of Cellcord. I've been a seller and supplier at Walmart for around almost 9 years now. So I've come from the seller side, started Cellcord around, I think 4 years ago, when we realized that, Walmart.com was growing extremely fast. There was so much opportunity, but brands and solution providers weren't really focusing in on the changes that were happening to .com. We've seen that on the 1P side, but even more on the 3P side. So that's kind of where we dove in and decided to just exclusively focus on Walmart and try to be the best at it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lane Caruth, and I lead our enterprise division here at Cellcord. I'm also based in Northwest Arkansas, so I'm in Walmart's backyard, been working with Walmart on the e-com side since day one, and really excited to talk more today about Walmart Marketplace and how we can help.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much. Before we kick it off, remember, questions, comments, put into the chat, the Q&A, or you can always email me at tiffany@bwgconnect.com.
Awesome. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to talk through this. There's a lot of slides. I'm going to skip through some of them quicker, and then some we'll spend a little more time on. But a little bit about Cellcord, just quickly. We're exclusive Walmart agency partner, so we exclusively focus on Walmart.com. We're a Walmart Marketplace approved agency. We're a 1P app, so you'll see us in Retailing under DashNet by Cellcord. We're also a Walmart Connect approved API partner. So we're pretty integrated into the different Walmart ecosystems. We do 1P and 3P account management, media and strategy management. We have our proprietary software for ad management, for profit analytics, for the 3P side of the business, to help with forecasts and data. So there's a lot of different products we have. We manage tens of millions of dollars in Walmart advertising, and we have teams in Northwest Arkansas led by Lane. We have our most of our leadership team in Los Angeles, and we have a overseas team in China for our international partners. I went back. Here's a little bit of some of the brands we manage. Some of you might be familiar with some of these. Some of you guys might maybe in the chat. Some of the brands are actually in this webinar. I'm not sure, but these are some of the brands we've been working with. We manage over 450 brands, so there's a large range of brands and types of brands and categories that we work with. Not going to kind of pitch Walmart Marketplace too much, but we'll go more into tactical things. But just some high level. Obviously, Walmart Marketplace has been seeing a ton of growth. 45% jump in Walmart Marketplace revenue. This year I know they have extremely high goals for what they're trying to get out of the channel, and that what that means is obviously Walmart Marketplace is a small portion of Walmart's e-com business, but you know, because it's such a big focus for them, there's so much resources getting put into developing it, into developing more products and solutions to help sellers, to you know, drive in developing and driving more traffic to Walmart Marketplace items, to giving them more visibility on top placements on Walmart. If you kind of noticed on the October event, that was a few weeks ago, you could see like most of the top items and top placements were actually marketplace items. There was a lot of 1P as well, but most of the top items were marketplace items. So through, you know, giving a lot of visibility, you know, they're able to kind of really grow the marketplace business. So obviously it's been a really big priority for Walmart. Little bit of just to understand, this is pretty obvious, but just who are the sellers selling on the marketplace? There's really resellers, which used to be a much larger portion of Walmart. Walmart's trying to encourage much more for brands directly to work with them. So slowly that's becoming a much smaller portion of the Walmart business, but resellers, just brands that are buying wholesale from sellers who are buying wholesale from brands and then reselling it on the platform. Obviously, they're less invested in the content, usually, not always, usually less invested in the content because it's not their brands. They're going to be less invested in driving traffic and growing those items. So you'll see less, so to say, hard competition when categories are really led by resellers. Some categories have more resellers than others. You'll see electronics will be much higher dominated by resellers. And then there's 1P brands that have been expanding to 3P. This has been a big kind of focus that we've seen for a few reasons. That we've seen 1P brands kind of expand to 3P. Number one, with DSV going away for some categories and some brands, even if DSV feeds haven't gone away for you, we're still seeing obviously that Walmart just not supporting DSV as much. DSV is less profitable for Walmart. Marketplace plays in a much bigger initiative for Walmart. So you know, there's just not a lot of support going to DSV. So that's another reason why we see a lot of brands expanding into 3P. And then, you know, another reason why is really just the main reason is really just the flexibility and the ability to grow and pull levers, right? Traditionally, there wasn't so much you could do when you have a DSV item. You could run some Walmart advertising behind it, you could optimize it, but there isn't a lot more you could do to really grow your sales. So I think this is, you know, one of the big reasons why 1P suppliers have obviously been transitioning. And then you have Amazon native brands. This has been driving a lot of the Walmart seller kind of acquisition, and a lot of the sales of some of the big items is the Walmart sellers, kind of the Amazon sellers expanding to Walmart. They're more tactical by nature. They have large established assortments, and they're willing to invest heavily into Walmart Connect and advertise in different advertising products. So we see kind of a lot of competition in that, and then a lot of the growth and competition has come from overseas sellers with like dozens of brands, and you know, some of the top sellers on Walmart Marketplace are that. I think what's really interesting, and what I always talk, this is from the audience, it's a lot of a 1P supplier base from what I saw on the list. So you know, what I always say is it's really interesting because Walmart.com is obviously growing and it grows every year, but from the amount of sales that are coming into Marketplace, and the Marketplace is growing at a much faster rate than Walmart.com as a whole is growing. And what that means is that extra margin, right? So let's say Walmart.com is growing at a 15% rate. Marketplace is growing at a 50% rate. That extra margin of 30 something points is really coming from 3P suppliers taking some of 1P revenue, right? So and usually it's not the same supplier moving their 1P to 3P. Most of that majority, by far, overwhelming majority, is coming from other 3P suppliers taking some of that 1P revenue. So I think when you're a 1P supplier, it's like when you're thinking through the strategies of Marketplace, there's a lot of different reasons for why Marketplace wouldn't make sense, right? But these are kind of some of the core ones, right? So, and when you're thinking through it, and if you don't line up with with most of these, then it might not make sense. But for when it makes sense, it's really added revenue, you know, ability to add more items. You know, it's up to you how many items you want to add. So they're looked at as an additional revenue channel with more levers that you could pull, right? And that's kind of the key thing, right? There's just so many levers you could pull on Marketplace that you can pull on 1P. So that additional revenue that they're able to generate on 3P, the brands that do it well are able to do more revenue on their 3P than they traditionally would see with DSV. So that's important. More another reason why is like more in-store distribution and like test items. This is a pretty cool strategy we've been working with some really large brands with, which is, you know, if you're a brand that has assortment in stores or you want to get your assortment into stores, it's really kind of the same approach. It's you could come to the buyer telling them how good your item is and showing data from other channels and all that. But the best thing you could do is come to line review with, here's the item we want you to take in stores. Here's how it's set up. Here's the listing for it on Walmart.com. You can see all the content's good. It's high listing quality score. It's high reviews, everything like that. You just took away a bunch of their risk. On top of that, here's proof Walmart customers are already resonating with our item, right? And it doesn't take a lot of Walmart sales for the buyers to be kind of impressed with that, because it's, you know, Walmart.com is much less competitive than Amazon or, you know, in general. So it's just to really, if you put effort in driving traction behind those items, and you could really set yourself in a really strong position. We've been able to get countless items, you know, much better chances of getting into store and getting into store because of that. So that's kind of, you know, one really, you know, interesting kind of way when you're thinking about marketplace and how to leverage marketplace. I think that's one interesting thing. You know, brand protection is big. There's a lot of, you want to jump on as many of, so to say, your listings as possible when other resellers are selling your products. It's much easier when it's through marketplace. There's stuff you could do obviously through 1P, but it's much easier through marketplace from a brand protection element. So a lot of brands that we see, like, they're not so excited, let's say, about the revenue that they'll drive from marketplace, but because of the brand protection elements and being able to kind of own their listings, that's been a big reason. So, and then you have really reviews. There's Walmart for reviews. There's on the marketplace side, there's a couple programs which are much easier. So Walmart has free review syndication on marketplace side, which is really good. Instead of having to pay a provider for it, they have a free review syndication program. So that's kind of an advantage. And then another one, they have like the review accelerator program, which you could pay, it's, you know, pay a little bit of money and get reviews. The cost keeps changing, so I'm not sure what the exact cost right now is, but it's between 10 to 15 bucks per review, and then you get reviews that way. So, and then there's just constantly new programs that get introduced on marketplace, right? So you have like, just I put a screenshot of a couple, but you have Walmart Business that got introduced and is being rolled out much more. You have Walmart subscriptions now, which you also have on the 1P side, but on the 3P side, you have just more control over it. You have multi-channel solution, which is basically the ability to send into Walmart's inventory fulfillment centers, and then they'll ship out for your other distribution channels, which, you know, your direct to consumer one. So let's say to your Shopify site, or to, you know, we have brands that do it for TikTok Shop and other kind of channels. So this is good because it kind of de-risks your inventory also, because technically when it's in WFS, it's on consignment. So that's kind of a pretty cool initiative, but there's always kind of new initiatives, new data sources that just really launch with Walmart really doing that. And then, you know, one of the biggest things I didn't add on this slide is really the promotional capabilities that Walmart provides marketplace. I'll talk about this later, you know, we're getting into holiday, but a lot of the big promotional, Walmart's great at just planning promotional events, and I don't think anybody does it better than Walmart. And the amount of revenue they're able to drive from those events is insane, from some of the deals that we've seen and some of the items that we've seen. So it's just really about planning out properly to get included in these events, and marketplace just has so much of those slots. So there's so much you can play in with that.
Hey, Michael, could we take a pause real
Let's do
quick?
it.
Because we're getting some feedback that there's some black boxes in the upper right-hand corner. I don't know if everybody's seen
Oh,
that or not. It hasn't disrupted the content yet, but I just want to make sure it doesn't
for sure.
hinder
That's
anything.
better.
Awesome. I think that should be good to go. If anybody's seeing different, just let me know in the Q&A or the chat, but it looks good from my side. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Before I go on to this next slide, I just see a question, so I'm going to answer it, and then we'll go into the next slide. Can you share the logistics of brands working with Cellcore? Do they ship to your DCs and fulfill orders, or are they receiving through Walmart.com? So when we work with brands, it's all through their accounts. So we just operate as like an extension of their team on their accounts. Most of our brands, when they're using Marketplace, it's through Walmart's fulfillment centers. So we'll help plan out sending into Walmart's fulfillment centers, planning out the logistics there, the forecasting there, and then helping manage that. But you know, Walmart, leveraging Walmart's fulfillment centers, it's kind of like how Amazon Prime was, whereas like when Amazon Prime launched, it was like a nice to have, and then if you want to be successful on Amazon, it's kind of almost became like you have to have it. So that's kind of where like WFS, Walmart Fulfillment Centers, really evolved to, where Walmart Fulfillment Services really evolved to, where it's really become like, I sort of say, a need. You'll see kind of like in their promotional placements of items and things, like one of their requirements will sometimes be like it has to be Walmart fulfilled, or for like a top placement or things like that. So there's big impact there. So plus we see the cost more competitive than other channels too.
When it comes to the exclusive programs, does a brand have to work their way up to get access to those, or is that open to all?
So most of them are open to all. There's some that like get put in beta for a little bit, right? So now coupons are in beta. They're in their second round of beta. So you'll see like extra savings, it's called. Instead of being called coupons, it's called extra savings, but you'll see that. So that's something that like has been in beta. So a lot of these will go in beta. We'll usually be able to push our brands to get them into the betas quick. But betas, you know, they'll usually most of these programs will roll on in beta and then they'll go out. So like another program that just rolled out of beta, was in beta for maybe 6 months or a little longer, was Global Inbound. So now you can send containers directly from China into Walmart's fulfillment center. So you schedule it with Walmart. Walmart will actually take the container and at one of the 4 ports in China that they ship from, and then they'll take that directly to Walmart's fulfillment centers. So you don't have to handle any of that. So like that's a program, for example, like a beta program that was in beta for a while and now just launched. There's a lot of other programs that they're, so to say, launching and doing all the time. So yeah.
Very interesting.
Okay, so we're
And
gonna
these
get
slides
into
will be shared. There's some questions there too. We can share the presentation post-event.
awesome. So now I'm gonna kind of talking through really just optimization and just tactics to actually be successful on Walmart Marketplace. A lot of these tactics are really overlay between Marketplace and 1P. So some of them really apply to both, some of them are only really for 3P. So it really depends, but you could kind of ask me to dive into any of these specific things a little more. We're first going to talk through content optimization. Some of these are more basic, some of these are a little more advanced, and then we'll go into promotions and a little bit more strategy there, and then advertising and ranking, which is my favorite, just data you can look at and that Walmart provides to really help improve your advertising, your ranking, and then other different strategies and tactics you can use for that. So copy, general breakdown titles. Now it depends on categories. Some categories are a little different. General kind of rule of thumb is around 125 characters. Descriptions, and you'll see some categories they'll want at 75. It depends on the categories, and Walmart has style guides for every category. Descriptions, you want short description. Walmart wants short descriptions. You could go longer on your descriptions, and it won't affect your content score so much, but it'll affect your SEO in a positive way. So sometimes that's kind of where you want to, we use keyword stuffing. You don't want to do too much, but you definitely want to. That's where you want to add most of your kind of long tail keywords in there. And then for key features, long descriptions, you have room for more long ones, even though like obviously Walmart says it should be short. You ideally want 5 single lines. This is kind of where I would say it's really balancing the algorithm and what Walmart says they want, which sometimes it's the same thing, sometimes it's different, right? So like Walmart will tell you not to repeat keywords, but it'll actually help you index quicker if you repeat certain keywords. So it's really, when you're thinking about optimization, it's really make sure you understand the style guides, you understand the things that have the most impact, but you balance them. Obviously we're not going to get into all the specifics, but like that's kind of one of the core things that I think is really important to consider as you're going into it.
Hey, Michael, can I jump in here for a second real quick?
Sure.
I think it's really important too. Walmart algorithm, it's very different from Amazon. It's very different from other platforms, and they're constantly making changes and testing different things. And that's where, as a Walmart agency partner, we have firsthand knowledge of that and, can share information about that. But making sure you're understanding, really selling to that Walmart algorithm is just super, super important.
100%. And I think, we see this, like, I think if the quicker you are to make the changes to some of the changes Walmart goes through, I know for 3P, there was a big change that went into October 20th into effect. I think it was October 25th or the 26th, where a lot of content scores dropped because of some new requirements and how they were, doing the math on listing quality score and reflecting it correctly. So there's constantly new things. The quicker you are to it, just the more leverage you have and the, better you really index. I think that's really important. When we say don't copy from other sources, this is important because Walmart relies a lot on Google traffic, and it helps them index much stronger within Google if they have unique content. So when you copy content from other channels, it affects that. So that's important. Readability, this one's a little bit obvious, but how you space out your content. Include most commonly asked questions, details I mentioned. This also helps pick up sometimes when people are using different searches and filters, and then highlighting key features. Again, this stuff's a little bit more obvious, but we see too much times, especially in the key features, you want to really focus in a little bit more on what makes your item stand out, and then descriptions used more for keywords. Because people will read the key features a lot more than they do the description, especially if you leverage below the fold content. Very few people will actually read the descriptions. So it's a spot to just, really do the algorithm good. But in key features, people will really read and get information from them. So there's that. For rich media, which is like below the fold content, there's a lot of different modules. We'll talk through this a little bit later, but Walmart heavily relies on conversion rate for ranking as opposed to sales volume. So anything you do to improve your conversion rate obviously goes a long way. Now, my favorite is comparison charts because it's the ability to basically upsell and cross-sell your other items. When you kind of look at a Walmart PDP, there's so many other items being sold on your page. And if you want your items to show there, obviously you have to pay Walmart Connect for every click on that. This is kind of like free clicks, right? To just cross-sell and upsell your other items. So that's the one I would, I like best. And then feature set is, equivalent to Amazon ABC, where there's a lot you could do with it. And there's a lot of, you could put even GIFs, and there's different things you could do within the content. You could put videos within the below the fold content. So there's so much you could do to really, and then there's some basic ones like doc hosting, where if you have manuals or style guides and things like that, you can include on your listing. So we host Rich Media. I think we're the most competitively priced on the market for hosting Rich Media. Walmart will be bringing Rich Media slowly in-house, so it eventually will be free. But I would suggest, working with a partner to have your Rich Media until it becomes free with Walmart. Walmart already introduced video in 360, but slowly some of the other ones will come. But like with all these things, it takes time. So
What's the ideal number of images on a product listing?
So I say 8. I think some categories and some depends on your item. Sometimes you need a little more room to do a little more education, but I think 8, a minimum 7 is what we suggest.
And does the algorithm on Walmart favor more images and video? I know when I worked with Target, the algorithm really liked when we added video, and that would
so I haven't seen video as much impact the algorithm yet. I've seen images have been, and how many images you have impact your quality score a lot, but also impact just how your item indexes. Haven't seen video impact it in that way. I've seen it impact it a lot, and it helps conversion rate a lot. And then if it's helping your conversion rate a lot, then obviously your ranks improving a lot. So more from that standpoint, but not from just directly you having a video right away, kind of rank it higher. So that's been interesting.
Excellent. Questions, comments put into the chat or the Q&A as we move along.
Some other just front end kind of notes. When you're thinking about groupings and variations, I think there's really a ton of opinions for how to best do it on Walmart. And a marketplace is pretty easy to kind of break things apart, put them back together. So, you definitely test out different things. Some of the best ways to do it is you want to really think through the items that are going to have the highest click-through. The items with the most Walmart history, because they're going to have the highest relevance. So I'm the best seller. So you want to just look on Walmart, sort by bestseller, and you could see which similar comps are being the bestseller. Lowest price, you're gonna really want to have varied as the base ID usually, and then so that when and that's what people click through. Now, oftentimes you might want your variation split on Walmart different than you do on other channels for a few reasons. Number one, owning Walmart real estate is easier than, for example, Amazon, right? It's easier to get ranked. It's easier to just maintain your ranking. So if you have an item with a lot of variations, and you're able to split into 2 different listings, for example, you now are able to show on that search result page another time, which just helps take up a little more shelf space. If somebody skimmed over your first listing, maybe they'll click on the second one. Now, it again depends. You don't want to make it confusing, but it was just a thought to actually splitting that up a little bit more. Review syndication, we covered that, so I'm gonna kind of skip through that. And this is, I know it's a lot of information, so I'm gonna send this after so people have the information for content content optimization and management. But I'm gonna kind of talk more about ranking stuff because that's what I like best. You know, I think what's really interesting about ranking, especially if you're a 1P supplier, is that Walmart.com used to be this ecosystem where you put up your listings, it'll be a little bit, it goes through this cold start period, and then eventually you get your items ranked, and it's pretty easy to maintain that because there are not so many new items being introduced. The whole thing about marketplace is that there's so many new items constantly being introduced. You constantly have to fight to keep your share of voice, otherwise you're going to lose it. And I think that's why it's just so important, and to really be successful on .com, it really comes down to, like, the way I look at it is like you have foundational elements, which is content optimization, indexing, you know, click-through rates, all that kind of stuff. Like, make sure your listings are really good. Once you finish the foundational elements, so it really comes down to how do you get your items ranked and maintain their ranking? Because if not, you have really good content, but you're losing your rank to constantly new competitors, then, which there's so many of those now with just how much larger the Walmart assortment is. With marketplace, you have to realize we have sellers launching on market. We just launched a seller on marketplace that has 6 million SKUs, right? Like, on the 1P side, that just wouldn't happen. Almost very rarely, or that's just not something that would happen. So on the 3P side, it's much easier to launch large assortments and stuff. So you have a lot more competition. So I think that's really important. Now, to understand rank, it's click-through rates, clicks to add to cart, and add to cart to purchase, right? That's how rank your rank is really calculated. And if you have strong impressions to clicks, strong clicks to add to cart, and strong add to cart to purchases, the most weight, to my knowledge, goes on clicks to add to carts. But there's also a lot of weight that goes on the impressions to clicks and the add to carts to purchases. Now, the better your 3 CVRs are, the easier your ads are. Now, people go to me a lot of times and like, hey, I put all high bids on my ads, they're just not converting, or just not getting any clicks on them. I'm not even getting any impressions at all. That's a lot of times if Walmart doesn't show that you don't have a high relevancy score, which is tied to, you know, how well your items organically converting, then it'll affect if they even show your ad, even if you put really high bids. So these things are really important to kind of refine so that it affects, you know, all layers of it. A little more details to how it works. Historical item data is key. That's why when poor 1P listings are still at the top, because Walmart's calculating a lot of historical data. That's why you'll see like poorly optimized 1P listings sometimes that's still at the top. Slowly you'll see they'll get override by newer listings. Launching needs to be targeted to avoid low CVRs, cold starts. This is really important. I see people launch an item, they're like right away, they're like, hey, I'm just gonna run a bunch of ads behind it because it's a cold start, I just want to get it going. But if you're spending on items that have low conversion rate, on keywords that have low conversion rates, you're actually hurting yourself because your relevancy score is being low. Walmart's saying that you're not converting for ads, and then it's harder to get it to convert on ads for the right keywords. So just you want to get a good push in the beginning. What we've seen works best for cold start is sending very targeted external traffic for a very short period of time to an item. It shows Walmart a really good signal, and then from there we're able to get through like the cold start phase pretty quick. Then it's like understanding high volume keywords versus relevant keywords, obviously. And this is where it could really affect your conversion rates. Obviously, if you're bidding on mat, obviously versus yoga mat, it's more when you're structuring your advertising and things like that. You know, any low CVR, especially in the beginning, right? When you think about your listings that has like a 0 conversion rate, if you send 1 click that converts, you have 100%. So it's much easier to, so to say, manipulate that in the beginning. When your listing is new, when you have an established listing, you have to drive a lot of high converting traffic to balance it out. So that's kind of just important to think through. Now, this is my favorite, is like really understanding the keywords and choosing the right keywords. So there's something called a search trends report. Now Walmart has it within the marketplace. If you have a marketplace account, you could see under related keywords and search query reports, you could see some of the data. It's not fully. So under search query reports and related keywords, you could actually search a keyword and it'll show you the top 5 clicked items for each of those keywords. Which is pretty cool. But through the search trends report that we have access to as an API partner, we're able to pull a lot more data, which is really cool, which is basically every keyword, it'll show you how big the keyword is, right? So Walmart doesn't tell you the actual search volume of the keyword, but it'll tell you how big the keyword is. So like milk is number 1, right? So we don't know how many searches milk has, but we could do math to estimate how much milk has and how much the lowest keyword has and every keyword in between. But what's really important is the priority of that keyword, and then it'll tell you every main keyword for that keyword, what are the 3 top items that are converting for that keyword and how much conversion share they're taking, right? Click share and conversion share. And then that's when you really know, like if you have an item that's very similar, for example, for a vacuum, right? If let's say Bissell little green machine is the number 1 converting for vacuum, let's say that that's the number 1 converting, and you have an item that's very similar to that, and you're not ranked in the top 3 and they're taking overwhelming majority of the conversion share, that you should be more aggressively going after that keyword, because that based on the features, based on your retail and things like that, you could be more competitive for that, and that there's a lot of opportunity there. So there's just a lot of data you could pull from that, and then from that data you can understand not only which keywords are important, but which keywords really have opportunity for you. So I think that's really cool. Walmart's just on the marketplace side adding a lot more visibility to a lot more data. There's something which is called the search catalog performance report, which you'll kind of see on this image. And that's what's really cool, is you could actually, it'll show you all your items and it'll show you the sales rank of each of your items. And that's awesome because, a lot of times, like you could be like, hey, I'm doing 60 units a day for this item, but I want to be doing 100. And like you're driving yourself crazy how to increase your sales. But if your sales rank is number 1 for it, there's not that much more you could do. Obviously you could try external traffic, other things, but but if you're ranked number 30 if your sales rank is 30 for that, that means there's 29 listings that are doing much more sales than you. So it's about figuring out how to get that. And it's actually very insightful. I was looking through it for some of our accounts, and items that I thought needed more focus and more opportunity were really ranking at the top. And then items that I thought didn't have too much more opportunity and were ranked well, and I thought were selling pretty well, actually had a lot more opportunity. So because there were only sales rank of like 20 or 30 or 40. So I think it's really important to kind of analyze that data and take that lens into it. I think that's really what sets up the successful sellers apart, is when you're an established brand, you have good items, you have good brand recognition, good value with your product, and your retails are good. Like you have the key elements to it. But if you're not visible, then you just lose to the items that are bad quality, maybe not even as aggressive retails, just because they're getting more visibility than you. So like if you're a brand that has those key fundamental elements, it's just about getting that added visibility. It's like, it makes it easier to win. You just have to take that amount of tactical focus that some of these other sellers and suppliers are really focusing on. So that's a big area. So I know I talked
I
a
think
lot.
it's opportunity too for updating your content on your product page, right? So looking at the keywords, and maybe that's a good opportunity to refresh what you're actually writing for content.
For sure. Sometimes we're really surprised with like the keywords that are really driving the sales on Walmart versus other channels. And it's like, okay, we should really be considering this keyword over what we've been really pushing on our listing. And then once you have that on your listing, now it's much easier to convert on the ads for that.
What's the best practice for a brand to do that? Is that like a quarterly review? More
Yeah,
frequent?
I mean, so I do every time you have a new item, I would check the data a month later. And then I would also kind of do a general thing quarterly is a good way to do it. If you're a little more aggressive with your items and you're in very competitive categories, I would suggest doing it once a month, even at a quick glance to just see because there's new keywords that pop up. So I would definitely suggest that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Checking it sooner is better just because Walmart's constantly making changes and you want to make sure that you're staying above that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're pulling the data via API every day, and then we track changes that we see to it, and you'll be surprised. Like sometimes there's big jumps, and obviously a lot of it is seasonal driven, but there'll be big jumps behind that.
And that's a great point too. I mean, we've got a lot of key holiday seasons coming up and there's a lot of changes that happen within that as well.
Yep. I see there's a question, is there a search report for 1P? Yeah, so what's actually pretty cool is it's the report is actually 1P and 3P, so it takes all the data.
Hmm.
So when you have a queue on the search trends report, it actually has the 1P data and the 3P data. So you'll see some of the top items will sometimes be 1P, some will be sometimes 3P.
Good to know. Awesome. And then here's another one. Is it true that once you create a Walmart product ID on the marketplace, it becomes part of the unified catalog where any reseller, including rogue sellers, could use it?
Yeah, so it kind of but meaning they could use it anyway, right? So like a reseller, any seller on marketplace could, I could list this Expo pen on marketplace under kind of a new listing too. If they're not using the correct UPC and stuff like that, you can kind of get it taken away. But once you create that product, it's part of the unified catalog. But now you're the content owner for it rather than them creating the listing, them being the content owner, and you having to fight to get the content back, which is a little bit annoying and hard.
And real quick, where can you access the report as a one?
So as a 1P, I don't, so the full search trends report, to my knowledge, is not available to sellers and suppliers. It might be parts of it through Walmart Connect. I would have to check. But we have access to it as a provider. I could send, like, we have a sheet that it's not constantly updated data, but we have a sheet that we could send with some of the data. So I could definitely share that over after.
Awesome.
Just the core data.
Good questions. Keep them coming.
Product content on P2P. Does Walmart include words and reviews when rewarding keywords? I'm not sure I fully understand that. Does Walmart include word?
So that actually be a customer review.
So that's a good question. Just if like when you see keywords in reviews when they're indexing it, from I've been in conversations with Walmart about this. We haven't seen it impact now as they're leveraging like more AI for like search and things like that. They are pulling a lot more data sources than they were before, so it is impacting that a little bit. But it's not impacting search results yet. For the most part, but like they AI from like as they're figuring out those search results, like they're pulling really everything that's on a product page.
Got it. Excellent. Think we're caught up. Good question.
Okay, awesome. So this is just quickly understanding LQS and the impact it has, 1P versus 3P. 1P is only content score, 3P is content offer, post-purchase ratings and reviews. So it really, because they're trusting you to handle this the selling process fully. So all these things play into it. And so, they're called price parity with Amazon. Like there's something called a meet beat score that they go by, which is like, are you meeting or beating the price of on other channels, shipping speed, maintaining stock, post-purchase if there's complaints and things like that. So it's really a little bit more of a holistic score on the 3P side, but it's critical. So
Can you go hybrid like Amazon 1P and 3P?
yeah, so I mean, a lot of brands are both 1P and 3P. Now, when you have, we'll have even listings that like the parent listing would be 1P, and then like some of the variations will be 3P. That could be pretty cool because the 1P listing a lot of times will be, it depends on the item, but sometimes will be very aggressively priced, could get a lot of click through, and some people are looking for other variations, and then they'll purchase the 3P option. So there's cool ways to do that. 3P revenue still somewhat rolls up to the buyer. So, and it's important for them to kind of show marketplace growth. And so, we see a lot of benefit from that as well.
As a brand, can you cherry pick the SKUs you want 1P versus 3P as opposed to Amazon that kind of wants you to go all one way? They want to own that process?
So with 1P, it depends, within when I say 1P, I mean either store shared inventory, FC owned inventory, or even DSV, because it's all just under retailing versus seller center. I think what's important is that like 1P, depending on your relationship, they're only going to buy certain items, and then if you're doing DSV, sometimes you have a lot more flexibility with the items that you could list on there. But when it comes to DSV, like they normally won't really care if an item is DSV or marketplace. Most of the time they would prefer it being marketplace over DSV. Very rarely will they prefer it being DSV than marketplace, right? If Walmart's going to take an item owned, it's almost always better to just obviously let them buy the inventory. But assuming they're not going to take the item owned, marketplace is almost always better than DSV. Now, with some items cost wise, DSV is a little more attainable just because of the rates and things like that. But 3P has so much more advantages. So LQS is, I see a question, the listing quality score it stands for. So that's a term that most they go by on the 3P. So impact on rank, listings with lower scores will have a hard time ranking. That one's obvious. Impact on ads, there's a requirement of high content score to run ads to gain relevancy. And then, obviously the impact that merchants and account managers on the 1P and the 3P side really use. So like an item won't get evaluated for strong placement opportunities on marketplace if it doesn't have listing quality score. Your buyer is obviously going to reach out to you on follow up if your item doesn't have a good listing quality score. There's so many things that are impacted by that. That's obviously kind of just some of the core requirements of why it's really important. I'm going to skip item spec 5.0 just because we don't really have the time for it right now. I just want to give a couple things on holiday prep. There's the dates kind of just got released yesterday for event 1, event 2, which internally Walmart calls AE1 and AE2, and then Cyber Monday. A few quick notes. Walmart's mosaic placements obviously drive a ton of volume. It used to be if your item gets included in a mosaic placement, it's kind of just there. Now they use like a ranking system where for the first 2 hours it usually stays there, and then a system kicks in to decide your ranking based on how much traffic the item's getting. How high it stays on those pages. So it's super important to just send whatever external traffic as well as Walmart Connect traffic during those first few hours of the event to just show your items getting good traction. So it maintains kind of high placement on these key events. Those people, I guess, underestimate the ability and the volume that are driven from these events. We had one item that did over $2 million just during Black Friday for a SKU that was, before then, I think it did like $20,000 or $30,000 a month prior, just from the added placement. And that was just on .com. So there's a ton that you could do there. I would say the deadlines are like November 2nd and like I think November 9th, November 2nd for AE1, and I think a little later in November for AE2 to kind of get all your placements in. So I'm sure most people had theirs in, but if not, I would suggest doing that ASAP.
So it looks like we have a couple of questions here.
So
Yes.
I'll go to question and answer one first. How are 3P sellers mitigating small parcel costs with Walmart? I mean, it's expensive and there's really not so much to do with it, to do about it, so to say. Some brands have certain discounts with Walmart, which helps. And then during key events and during deal times and stuff like that, Walmart offers kind of WFS discounts kind of across the board, which help. That's something that could be done there. Then
a great question about brand protection, right? So we have somebody who isn't currently selling on Walmart, and wondering how they can control 3P sellers on Walmart that are selling their products. How do we represent and make sure that our content is correct?
Yeah, so what I would suggest in this scenario is it's an open marketplace, right? So if brands have your items, they're allowed to sell it there. Now, the first person to kind of list your item there owns the content, but as a brand, you have the highest brand ownership kind of rights. So what I suggest is basically setting up brand portal and brand ownership kind of rights. Going, making an account, having that set up. Don't have to sell any items if you don't want to sell anything, but get content ownership taken over. So now your account owns the content ownership. Change the content to reflect the way you want it to reflect about your brand. And then if you want these other people to keep, if they're following guidelines, they keep selling. If they're not, we can get them removed. But that's kind of what I would say the best way to monitor and keep it up is.
That's a great point. So you can protect your territory per se by not having to be actively involved in the selling on the platform.
Correct. Yeah.
Really good to know. All right, I think we are caught up. Any closing thoughts, Michael, before we wrap up? As always, amazing content.
Yeah, so I would just say I'm always free to kind of talk through Walmart. Lane here as well. You can reach out to us. We're most happy to have a conversation about different things we do to help grow brands at Walmart. But even if you're not interested in working with us, you just want to learn a little bit more about Walmart Marketplace, about support with 1P and just questions. We're more than happy to. And then Lane, maybe if you could paste both of our emails in the chat, I think that would be helpful. And then I'm more than happy to kind of talk through this stuff. We're going to be doing another webinar, I think, later on about diving deep into Walmart advertising. So I think just when it comes to marketplace, it's growing really fast. If you're a 1P supplier thinking about expansion to marketplace, think about the different elements. And I think Walmart.com just becoming a place where you really have to put all the focus on protecting your real estate on the page. And that comes through good foundational elements and then good strategic and tactical plans. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Lane. We definitely encourage follow-up conversation with the Cellcord team. They are amazing. We love to partner with them, and they always bring such awesome content to the table. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody for joining today. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you on another BWG event soon. With that, it's a wrap. Happy Tuesday, everyone, and almost happy Halloween. Take care, y'all.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye.